The world of startups is pretty amazing. Many students out there are wondering, should I join a startup? Should I create my own startup? And they have a lot of questions in this space. Today's episode of Zista's podcast is going to go deeper into this very subject. Welcome to the Zista Podcast, where we invite industry professionals and academicians to answer questions that students have within a specific subject. Today we are focusing on startups, the startup hustle. And joining us today is Dhaval Thanki. Dhaval has over 18 years of experience in the tech, digital, SaaS and analytics space. He's worked with a bunch of successful startups and he's currently the executive vice president at Loginext, the world's leading automation SaaS platform. Now Loginext is a big company, but it still really operates very much like a startup. Let's go straight into the session. Good morning and thank you for coming here today, Dhaval.
Thanks, Amit. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
I'm really excited to talk to you about the entire piece on startups, and I think students have a lot of questions on their mind. Something that you could help us with is by answering a very key question. So let's say I'm a student, I'm graduating, and I have a few strategic options in front of me. I could look at joining a startup, or I could create my own startup. So what would be your advice to them?
That's a really interesting question to kickstart this conversation with. Yes, I mean, we live in exciting times. The kind of choices you have today as a student are more than ever, right? And that's mainly driven by the whole democratization of technology fundamentally. And it's also driven by the nature of businesses that we have today, right? Also, tying it back to the point you made in your question, which is, should I start up? Should I join a startup? Should I join a large organization? Should I join a small organization? I think the best thing about this question today is it's really up to what you're really passionate about.
Right.
You really need to find that out. While you are studying, while you're pursuing your career, or at whatever stage in your professional life cycle that you are at, you need to really discover what is it that gets you going. What is it that you really enjoy doing? And once you figure that out, you can translate that into a career. And today that's possible more than ever. And that's again because the opportunities are democratic. You can today start your own company by just having a laptop, a mobile phone, and an internet connection, right? I mean, entry barriers to practically any business are close to zero, right? So, if I have to summarize all of this, it's really down to choosing the right culture fit in terms of how you like to work, what kind of environment you like to work in, and then, picking up an organization that resonates with that, irrespective of the form factor of that organization, whether it is a startup or a small business or a large business or even an entrepreneurial opportunity. Because none of these things, by the way, again, to put in a big, important, not really a caveat, but an important point to consider is anything worth doing is never going to be easy. So, if it's something you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to be a CEO because it's cool to be a CEO, that whole cool quotient will wear off in a few months. When the real reality of running a business hits you, you realize that it's hard, right? So you won't be able to go the distance if you don't persevere, and you won't be able to persevere if you're not passionate about it. So it again ties back to figuring out what you're really passionate about, rather than getting carried away by something which is an external manifestation of what you see in the world, and then you don't really have a foundational clarity on it. You're just overwhelmed by what you see around you, and then you just want to be a CEO because it's cool. So it's really important to bring in that little discipline in your thought process to figure out that I need to do this because I deeply enjoy doing it, and I can endure the hard days, I can live through the challenges, and I can persevere, because only then you will really see your career flourish, your life flourish in general, because today your careers are very intertwined with your life. So it's really important to take that that view of things rather than getting carried away. So again, in summary, be really sure of what you're passionate about, and be really sure of what environments you thrive in, and then choose the right option for you. And remember that whatever you choose will have its share of challenges, and you will have to stay committed. You'll have to keep working hard. You'll have to keep compounding your effort. Only then you'll start seeing returns in terms of job fulfillment, value creation, financial value creation, emotional value creation, so on and so forth. So that's how I would kind of look at it.
You've really given us a lot of matter to think about, and I'm sure students will also be, looking at the points that you raise and saying, all right, I need to think this through. I need to be sure about what is it that I want to do, and really, think a little bit before you leap. Doing that will allow you to have a more fulfilling experience, and at the same time, make more appropriate choices. And, entrepreneurship and having an entrepreneurial mindset, even if you are working in an organization, you can be an intrapreneur where you are being a change agent. You're really looking at processes or existing practices with a fresh eye and looking at how can we re-engineer this to deliver more customer experience. Enhance the customer experience, deliver more value. So it's really interesting. Let's go back a little bit to students who are really keen to create their own startup. So the question is that how do you find the right idea, right? How do you find, should students be looking at research, looking at doing some kind of study before launching a startup, and how would they find that good product market fit?
That's again a great question, but I just want to reflect very briefly on the earlier point you made about entrepreneurship is really not a job, it's a mindset.
Right.
You can be in any job on any, in any organization in the world, and you can operate and think like an entrepreneur. Okay. And it irrespective of the hierarchy of the role of any other dynamics. So you can cultivate that entrepreneurial mindset. And what is really an entrepreneurial mindset? This whole ability to be ruthlessly solution oriented. Whole ability to ruthlessly focus on value creation. This whole problem solving mindset, not getting bogged down by challenges, continuing to chase your goal, continuing to chase your ambition, continuing to chase what you enjoy doing. That's really the entrepreneurial mindset. And if you can cultivate an entrepreneurial mindset, you can reap the benefits of that in ways you cannot imagine. So it's really an important point, and I just didn't want to let it pass without calling it out, that it's really about cultivating entrepreneurship as a mindset rather than just as a role. You can be an entrepreneur as well in the real sense of the word, but in the metaphorical sense of the word, it's more powerful as a concept, and that's something that everyone should really strongly consider cultivating for benefiting in their career in whatever it is that they do. So that is an important one. Having said that, let's segue back into the question you just posed, right? Which is around, if you are a startup, how do you get that winning idea?
Right.
And this is one topic that management books are really screaming about since decades, right? From Peter Drucker to Philip Kotler to Michael Porter to some of the recent folks as well. Everyone's really, evaluating and sort of investigating this whole process of idea creation.
Right.
And the one central theme which no one will disagree to is it's never really about the idea, it's about the execution. Ideas are a dime a dozen. Anybody can get an idea. In fact, I don't know if somebody said this, but it's a very, very potent point, which is you don't choose ideas choose you. Right? Anybody can get an idea. You could be having a conversation and you suddenly realize that, hey, this could be an opportunity, right? What can we do about it? So there is, while you respect the fact that ideas are extremely important and ideas, of course, change the world, and that of course is a absolutely well accepted paradigm. But what's really more important is your ability to execute on an idea. You could have a really simple idea, and you could throw a lot of execution at it. You'll more often than not create value. Sometimes the idea may not be good enough, quote unquote, good enough from a certain frame of reference, but because your execution was super solid, you probably metamorphosed that idea into some other idea, which could then become and like a catalyst of success in whatever way you measured it. But that was possible only because you threw a lot of execution at it, right? And that's where all this persistence, perseverance, all of that comes in, because executing on an idea is, again, very, very hard. Okay. You can get a fancy idea and get super pumped and charged up about it, but to execute on that idea, to monetize the idea, to create a market for it, to do the product market fit, like you spoke about, that's where the real gold is, right? And the deeper you dig, the luckier you get in terms of finding gold with that idea, in terms of, finding the product market fit, etc. And that's where, even if you start with a wrong idea, like I said, if you throw super solid execution at a bad idea, what will happen is you will become that much smarter. Like Edison said, right? I mean, I did not fail 999 times because apparently it took him 1,000 attempts or 100 attempts, I don't know. But the larger point is it took him, let's say 1,000 attempts to to invent the light bulb.
Right.
So when he failed 999 times, when people say, hey, you failed 999 times, why do you want to try one more time? He said, I did not fail 999 times. I just discovered 999 ways to not build an electric bulb, right? And that's so true. I mean, we really, glamorize success too much, and we really, underplay failure a lot, as a society.
Correct.
And despite of us, being evolved beings, and, we've gone through a lot of evolution technologically, psychologically, emotionally, and all of that, we still haven't been able to fully realize the value of effort. If something works, it's not binary. Nothing is 0 and 1. It's not binary. You either succeed or you fail. No, you really grow, and growth eventually solves everything, right? Most successful entrepreneurs you see today have failed in their first or their second attempts, and then eventually they build up the big thing that they are now known for, right? So I think the larger point is, whatever idea you come up with, as long as you believe in it, as long as it gets your creative juices flowing, as long as you are ignited by it, you throw super solid execution at it, either you will succeed or you will grow. All right. And as they say, in today's world, even entrepreneurs or venture capitalists or big businesses encourage the value of failure. But what they tell you is you fail fast, right? You make your mistakes fast. It's okay. You try something, because you're not going to make mistakes unless you commit to something, right? Unless you take the effort to do something. So it's okay to make mistakes, but make your mistakes fast, learn from your mistakes, and do not repeat the same mistake again.
Right.
That expands your horizons. That allows you to eventually land on that winning combination where the dots connect beautifully for you to be able to, quote unquote, succeed. Like even the great Steve Jobs really did not succeed with Next, right? Which is the company he founded after he was, he was asked to leave from Apple, right?
Right.
Even at Apple, there were a couple of projects where he threw a lot of focus, attention, and resources to, which did not take off. For example, Lisa was the computer that he was trying to build that never really took off. Even the Macintosh, when he launched it for the first time, wasn't really as much of a blockbuster hit as he expected it to be. So it's really never the idea. It's always the person. It's always the effort. It's always the persistence. And it's always about increasing your shots on the goal. Sometimes a beautifully crafted, attack in football may not translate into a goal. You have some beautiful passes, right strategic moves on the field, some magical gameplay, but you don't convert all of that into a goal, because at the end, maybe the goal doesn't convert, and the goalkeeper stops it, or for whatever reason, you don't end up converting all that magic into a goal. Does that mean that, it wasn't worth creating that chance? No. You got to keep creating the chance more and more and more. Only then 1 out of those 10 chances are going to convert. And sometimes the chance that converts may not be the most beautiful of chances, but you got to that chance because you continued to do what you had to do. And that's really the real takeaway. So there is no easy answer. You would have figured out what I'm trying to get to. There's no easy answer to that question. How do you get that winning idea? How do you understand the product market fit? Trust me, with due respect to everyone and everything that's out there, no one really knows what's going to work. No one. In retrospect, you can say, yes, I could, which is why, again, I can't resist quoting Steve Jobs over and again, because, he's been a legendary figure, right, in the industry. So he said this other interesting thing where he said, you can only connect the dots backwards. You can never connect the dots forward.
Right.
Only when something works can you then retrospectively say, hey, I did these things and therefore it added up to this. But while you're at it, you don't know what's going to happen next. No one really knows. What we can only do is be absolutely, which is why, again, it ties back to, this whole passion and persistence part, because you keep increasing the shots on the goal. You keep being at it. You pick the idea, execute it relentlessly, doesn't work, evolve the idea, speak to people, understand what didn't work, what was supposed to be done better, etc. Evolve it to another idea, keep throwing your full weight behind it. Eventually, attempt 1, attempt 2, attempt 3, attempt 5, attempt 999, and attempt 1000, boom, eureka. It makes everything else worth it. And that's the beauty of it. Which is why you really have to chase what you are passionate about and keep at it. That's really important. I have seen some really amazing people who are very brilliant, amazing guys. They give up at some point. They'll be like, oh, I've been doing this and it's just not working. It's okay, right? Again, that's also the role of the society to encourage, that, okay, something may not work. It's okay. Nobody knows anything anyway. You keep doing this. And even if you have to transition from idea A to idea B, or career track A to career track B, sort of expanding it into the overall career progression part as well, it's okay to do that. It's totally fine. You just discovered that something isn't going the way it needs to go, so you make the transition. You're an entrepreneur, your business doesn't work, you tried 1,000 things that didn't work, fine, you transition, take up a job, do something else. As long as it keeps your creativity going, as long as it keeps you passionate about what you're doing, as long as it gives you that joy and that fulfillment of doing what you're doing, the form factor of your organization or the career track doesn't really matter. As long as you are operating at your best, as long as you are creating value for yourself and for people that you work with, and it's a net positive impact that you're able to generate in your life, in your career, and in the organization that you're associated with. So that's how I would want to bring it all together in some way. I guess it does answer your question, right?
It does. And I would say that you've taken a radically different approach, if I may say, in answering this question, because normally when you read about this, when you talk to, say, other people, they give more, say, the standard responses like, study the market, understand if there's a TAM or a target addressable market. Is your product or solution viable? Do you have enough number of customers to serve with that product or idea? And only then you follow through. But what you're really saying is really believe in your idea, focus strongly on execution, be passionate, persevere, keep at it, and it's okay if you fail. So many times when you hear people speaking from the West, they very openly admit their failures. Yes. But back here, we don't see people talking about failure so much. We just like to highlight success and in a way shy away from failure, kind of even hide it. But actually, it's the failures that have allowed you to discover what's the way to do it, what actually works. And I think that's really important part of the journey, right? Everyone needs to have a Thomas Edison's hat on, put a positive spin on the failures and say, I did not fail. I really learned how to do it better or differently. So that's really interesting,
I would want to just add a few more pointers to
what
you just spoke about, right? And this whole thing, I think we need to shine the spotlight on this whole aspect of encouraging constructive failure, as I would want to call it, right? For want of a better word, because again, success and failure are labels, right? They are just labels from a certain frame of reference, from a certain other frame of reference, as I said, from a growth frame of reference, from a learning frame of reference, there is no such thing called as a success or failure. But from a monetary frame of reference, there is a term called success and failure. Whether you were able to build a business that could generate a certain amount of revenue, that's a very quantifiable monetary frame of reference. Yes, you could put a label called success on something that generates revenue or generates profitability, value, etc., versus something that doesn't. So that frame of reference, sure, you can use those labels. But the world at large is much bigger and more diverse than just that one frame of reference.
It's very unidirectional.
Yes, it's very monolithic in that sense, and it's very restrictive in that sense, and it takes away from the spirit of existence as well. Because if you look at the human evolution, it's, you dive deep into how we've evolved over a period of time. It's been a lot of trial and error. It's been a lot of mistakes that we made as a species, which resulted in us being here where we are today, right?
Right.
And because at that point in time, evolutionary process had not invented the labels called success and failure. That's why it allowed the process to take care of itself, rather than polluting it with labels and then, kind of inhibiting its inherent evolutionary prowess by putting these labels on it and by kind of, in some sense, polluting its original capabilities, right? So I think that's something that we need to look at. And the earlier point I mentioned about nobody really knows anything. As I said, with due respect to everyone and everything, we don't know until we know. It's really that. And there are umpteen examples. I would want to really, because I'm not a Pythagoras or I'm not an Archimedes yet. So I really, I can't be the soothsayer, and I can't be sitting here and, making generic statements with a lot of confidence, saying, hey, no one knows nothing, etc. Because it needs to eventually be based on some kind of data, right? Because we live in the data age, and you need data to validate every statement you make.
Sure.
Otherwise, it's a hypothesis. Technically, everything is a hypothesis because there's never enough data to fully validate anything. But taking away from the philosophical side of it and focusing more on the logical side of it, you have examples that validate this point. For example, when Google started building the search engine, they had no clue how they were going to monetize it. And that's mentioned very clearly.
I remember reading about that.
Yes. And there are many such examples. When Zuckerberg and team were building Facebook, they did not know how they were going to monetize it. They really had no clue. They were just executing like hell. They knew they had an idea which they were passionate about. They knew they had an idea where they could engage a lot of customers, a lot of users onto their platform. And it just seemed right. And they just kept going. And eventually the whole valuation, monetization, etc. came in. Same with Google, like I said. Google, until a very long time, did not know how they're going to monetize their search engine, right? In fact, they even went to Yahoo at some point to sell their search technology to them, where they told Yahoo that, hey, we want to license our search technology, and so that, they could make licensing revenue out of whatever use cases Yahoo kind of, uses their search technology for. But that was never going to be a big scalable business. It would have never made Google what it is today until at some point they discovered that they can actually monetize Google by leveraging contextual advertising. That's when contextual advertising was born. You show people ads relevant to what they're searching for, right? So you don't carpet bomb, you do precision targeting from a marketing standpoint. And that's where the whole revenue engine for Google kicked in. Right, this whole contextual advertising game literally was one of the biggest engines that drove most modern businesses to the levels of valuations that they're sitting on right now, because that's became the whole revenue generation opportunity, right? Whether it is YouTube, whether it is Google, whether it is Facebook, Instagram, whatever, platform or app you look at, they're all driven by advertising revenue largely. Of course, now you've got subscription revenue, you've got SaaS businesses, there are many other business models coming in. But at that point, Google did not know how they were going to monetize it. And eventually the market showed the way because they were relentlessly executing on that idea. So suddenly things just added up and, they figured out that this is the way we could do it. Had they exited the business before they figured that out, we wouldn't know of Google today as we know of it in today's times, right? What really worked for them was persistence. Stay in the game. Keep increasing your shots on the goal. Keep doing what you believe in. And the universe will conspire to eventually get you to where you have to get to, right?
I love that line. I first read about that line in a lovely book called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho,
of course.
About the universe conspiring to help you. And I've seen that happen in my life as well. So I can actually say that it actually works. If you're deeply committed to a goal, to a purpose, somehow life falls into place, allowing you to get there,
Yeah.
So it's really interesting.
And I just, use some of the popular examples, but there are, phenomenal number of articles written in various international journals, and you can read up a lot of books, and they all talk about this aspect of, continuing to persist, continuing to just keep doing what you think is right, keep doing stuff that you're passionate about, and eventually things add up, because it's very difficult to have a idea and you say, you know what, this is a winning idea. It may be a winning idea, but unless it's backed by solid execution and a lot of support from the universe, call it luck, timing, whatever else, it may not really fructify into what you think it'll fructify into. And something which sounds like a really silly idea to many may actually blossom into a magnificent opportunity, because it metamorphoses over time through various ways to get to a more global, more fully formed state, which then makes it a great phenomenon or a great success story. And if you have to witness that process, like I said, you got to stay invested. You got to keep at it. You got to keep compounding your effort. You got to keep moving forward. And you can only do that if you truly believe in it, if you're passionate about it. So it all kind of comes down to that. So,
all right. Yeah. Awesome. I hope you enjoyed today's session. There were so many things I learned from Dhaval, and I'm happy to say that we're going to be inviting Dhaval to continue this conversation, keep talking about startups and uncovering more aspects. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube to keep getting content and to get notifications for new episodes as and when they go live. Follow us on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Our handle is the Zista Podcast. Till we meet again, we'd say, stay curious.